Hey folks, I want to let you know about one of my favorite sponsors of the show, AppFigures. AppFigures is the leading platform for mobile app makers to track and grow their apps. It's packed with tools for reporting, optimization, and competitive intelligence. If you're making money with subscriptions, you need to know how to stay on top of those numbers, and AppFigures is definitely going to be the way to go. They have some great tutorials and articles at appfigures.com that you can check out to help you get started on what you can do to help optimize your app. They also have a really good YouTube channel you can check out where they do things like This Week in Apps, where Ariel gives you updates on what's going on with the App Store, as well as live keyword takedown. So you can see how your app maybe could best optimize what keywords it uses. It's really easy to integrate with your app, and it's really easy to get started. So go ahead, go to appfigures.com and use the special code EMPOWER3030 to get 30% off for the next 3 months. There's no reason for you to just go ahead and give this a try. Again, EMPOWER3030, go sign up and use the code and get 30% off for the next 3 months. Also, take some time, check out the episode I did a few months ago with Ariel. He really knows his stuff and he knows what he's doing. So you'll definitely want to check that episode out. Again, once you've checked that out, you got a good idea on what to do with the App Store, then use the special code so you can get the reports you need from AppFigures. Use the code EMPOWER3030, get 30% off. Thank you so much to AppFigures for sponsoring today's episode. Welcome to another episode of Empower Apps. I'm your host, Leo Dion. Today, I am joined by Sarah Gretter, the Director of Apple Developer Academy in Detroit with MSU. Really glad to have you on and have this opportunity to speak. I've been super interested in the Apple Developer Academy and what they're doing there in Detroit. Personally, I'm interested, obviously, and business-wise. So I'm really glad to have you on. I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and what exactly you do there.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. I've been in conversations with you for quite some time, so it's exciting to be on your podcast. So I'm Sarah. I am the director of the Academy. We've worked with MSU, so I'm actually a Michigan State University employee. I've worked with Apple for many years around what it would mean to bring an academy to the United States. So this is the first and only Apple Developer Academy in the United States. There are some in Indonesia, Brazil, Italy, South Korea, but this is the very first one, and it is unique to the Midwest. In this partnership with Michigan State University, we're also supported by the Gilbert Family Foundation. And so we came together many years ago and started conversations that finally led us to launch this academy this year. So first in the nation, and we are also the first that's under Apple's new Racial Equity and Justice Initiative. So lots of components to it, but we've been doing great this year and excited to talk a little bit more about it with you today.
So what's kind of the process for someone who wants to be part of the Developer Academy and how they get in?
Yeah, so right now we accept anybody who is really interested in app development in its entirety. So we're not a coding bootcamp in the traditional sense. We really cover all the basics of the app development process. So if you join as a student, you are expected to learn basics of coding in Swift, obviously, but also basics of design, so UX and UI, and the basics of entrepreneurship or business within the app economy. So really understanding the whole development process to be fluent enough of all the languages that make you a really good developer. So students who are interested, and that can be individuals 18 and older, so really anyone interested, apply to the Academy. We're really looking for candidates who have the right mindset to be in the Academy. So people who are very autonomous and self-directed, who are willing to fail and try, right, as it takes in development, and are willing to learn from their mistakes and work together in teams to get through that experience together. We teach them everything they need to know in terms of skills, and that's why we're really looking for individuals who have that hunger and that creativity for coming up with the next best ideas or the best approaches to solving the most complex challenges we have through technology.
And is it just one program that they can apply to in one curriculum?
So we are in the process of offering different programs. We just launched this year. Right now we have the 9-10 month academic program in length. So it's 20 hours a week. You stay with us for the whole year, and this is what we call the academy. Part of the academy is also offering what we call a foundation program, and that teaches you the foundations of app development, so same business, design and coding, but within a 4-week time frame. And we're working on flexible schedules for that. So that gives you a taste of what app development is. It's open to anyone who is interested on a first come, first serve basis. And you stay within the academy space for that 4-week duration, which is a neat experience to see what the space is like, but also to see what the students in the academy are working on. As we progress through the year, we'll offer a third program, which is only open to students who have gone through the academy. And that's what we call the Renaissance program. That's our second-year program where students work with real clients and help develop their tech solutions.
That's awesome. So I was going to ask, is this all in person located here in Detroit?
Yes, so we are in person. We are right downtown Detroit in the First National Building, which gives students a great understanding of what the business district really is about and to be connected with really great partners around us. We are in one of the most beautiful buildings downtown. It gives a huge, beautiful space to be in.
So you mentioned, so we talked a lot about development on this podcast, so that we've covered that quite a bit, but you mentioned design and entrepreneurship as well are part of that program. Can you kind of give me an example of some of the unique skills that folks learn through those programs?
Yeah, so the precept of most of the academies worldwide, right, is in order to become a great or world-class developer, you have to understand the why, right? So understanding the why of an app is much different than I'm going to say simply coding it, right? Or writing lines of code is a huge part of the process. But to be a world-class developer, understanding why you're creating an app or why an app is creating and being able to be critical about the concept is a huge part of it. You can code the most beautiful app. You can make it as functional as you want, but there is no business case for it. Then you're just writing lines of code. So that's a part of the business aspect, right? We have students go through landscape analysis, business comparison of what's already out there so that you're really finding the niche for the app that you're creating. And when it comes to design, we also embrace a lot of Apple values where accessibility, good UI, intentional design is part of that same component of being a good developer. Understanding how the handoff between design and coding and vice versa operates are things that we want to do proactively in the development process instead of often reactively,
Right.
and add on features that we know could have had been avoided or thought about earlier in the process had the developer been able to think about it this way. So those are some of the basics that we cover. A lot of the business, value propositions for an app or a tech solution, user experience design, so understanding the user flow, but also interviewing users to understand what their needs actually are and finding the right audience for your app, and user interface in terms of design, color palettes, all of the psychology that goes behind creating a very beautiful but functional interface.
I want to deep dive a little bit more into the design aspect. What are some of the biggest challenges that students face when they're learning those design skills?
Research is really one aspect that I think all of us struggle with, but students in general, and that I've seen that for years, right? Is we often think that because we haven't seen something done, it doesn't exist. Really, the basic, do your research, right? First, go through the App Store, comb it left and right, look at it internationally. What are other resources that already exist? I don't want to see another app that's a directory of resources or something that you think is solving a problem that you haven't seen happen, right? So doing the research is actually where we spend a lot of time, and talking to users as another challenge that we face often is students. I think people in general, when they do research, are hesitant just to talk to people and prefer to create personas that are fictitious rather than go talking to actual people and getting their life history and understanding what their challenge is and how the app would help solve that challenge. So that's something we try to really push students to do. it's not easy, but it's so beneficial once they get the hang of it and understand
Right.
how to really anchor their solution or their, the challenge they're addressing with real life applications and strong qualitative and quantitative research attached to it. So that's really where we push students and hone in on.
So, what are some examples of the research you help students do? You talked about like a competitive analysis, just going out and talking to people, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get them started, and what are the different kinds of research that you've found helpful for them, I guess?
Yeah, so I'll preface this by saying that what we follow in terms of the structure for the academy is what Apple calls challenge-based learning. It's very similar to design thinking practices, which start with empathy for the user, right? Understanding people first, and then thinking about the solution that might be useful for them. And often, it happens that it's actually not an app that's the solution. Maybe it's another service or an organization and or a series of different solutions together, right? So we try to move away from what is called solutionism, which is once we have an idea, we know that's the solution, and we can't really we get attached to it. It's a natural
I
thing
like
to
that.
do, but
I
we
like
get
that term, solutionism. I've never heard of, but yeah,
mm-hmm.
that's a total like anti-pattern that a lot of us fall into.
It is. And then, once you have that solution in mind, we have this design fixation on like, this is the answer. So trying to stay away from that from the beginning is where we really push students. So we follow that challenge-based learning process. So like I said, very similar to design thinking, where we diverge and converge lots of times. So before going to a solution, we're going to diverge really far and do as much research as we can. We're going to look at what books exist on the topic,
Yeah.
articles, blog posts, what's been in the news recently about it, talk to people, talk to family members, diverge as much as possible, get as much information as possible before we can actually converge to think about potential solutions and for that challenge specifically. So that's where the UX process comes in. That's where the research gets in. And so rabbit holes, I encourage students to really think wide and think about analog examples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things that are outside of the industry that they're thinking about, or processes they've seen in their own lives that they think would be helpful in coming up with a solution.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. Like, I think for a lot of us developers, it's like we're so good at coding, we just like want to make everything a
That's what you
coding
want,
problem.
yes. And I'll say the students in the academy who are here for coding, right, and want to code are like, oh, why are you making me do this? Like, I just want to get to I just want to start coding. And we
Yeah,
try to really slow down that process because, again, you can have a
they're not, but there might
beautiful.
not be an audience for it. That's the biggest problem.
Exactly. Then what's the
Right.
point? Then I compare it. I compare it sometimes to writing like the final essay for a class in college or in high school. Right? It's like, okay, you've done the assignment, but it's not going to go anywhere with, right? You're just
Yeah,
doing it to do it.
right,
You're not going to
right.
get anything out of it. So.
I mean, and like I will go into a coding project knowing full well there might be not be an audience with it. And at least if you're honest with yourself, that's fine. But like, it's not a business. Like,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
either practice or it's a hobby. Yeah. So you got to be
Right.
careful. Yeah.
And so we integrate those different levels of challenges in the academy. So we do nano challenges that are maybe a day, right? And they're just coding on a specific challenge.
Mhm.
And then the last it amps up to the point where the last challenge is about 10 weeks, and from zero to App Store is what we ask them to do in teams. So being published on the App Store is the result of that last challenge. So they really have to understand all the process and work in a really good team to get that done. But yes, like you said, we integrate those examples and those exercises. You can do them in isolation, but when you think of the actual development process, unless you're doing it just for fun, if you want it to be really solid, then you have to do the research, and that's really essential to that process.
One of the design skills you mentioned was accessibility. What
Mm-hmm,
specifically are you, I guess, what going back, what are some specifics as far as design skills that
mm-hmm,
Apple tries to emphasize? And then we can go like, yeah, deep dive into accessibility being a big part of that. And what are some
right.
skills in accessibility that you really try to emphasize in the academy?
Yeah, so that's really a value that we try to embed. Like I said, proactively instead of retroactively. It's often thought about as an afterthought instead of being completely part of the design process. We follow the Apple's human interface guidelines, for which accessibility is really central. So we follow a lot of universal designs for production of those user experience and user interface. So I compare it to building a house. It's very similar in construction. Do you want to build a ramp after you build a whole house, knowing
Yeah.
that somebody who has mobility issues, is in a wheelchair, is pregnant, right? Different people might need that feature after the fact. If you think about them before you build a house, then you're in good shape. If you think about it after, it's going to cost you money, it's going to cost you a lot of time, and it's not going to be making for a functional app for everyone. So we try to think of those accessibility functions. So whether it's hearing impairment, visual impairments, using Apple ecosystem that's already embedded, right, native to the iPhone or other functions. We get students trained in understanding what those functions are, first of all, so that they can think of them as they design their user flow, but really trying to embed them at each stage of their designs, so that there's not a money and cost issue at the end when somebody says, "Well, I can't actually use VoiceOver on this app," right? Or this is not accessible for somebody who has mobility issues or needs an accommodation of certain sort. So we really try to place that at the forefront of the process.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, just kind of having that scaffolding set up before you go and deep dive and realize you have to pull out a bunch of stuff in order to add
Yes.
accessibility later. That's a really great point. Um,
Yes.
Maybe I think I want to step back and ask about the projects.
Yeah.
Do the students come up with their own ideas, or are there and then research if there's an audience for it, etc., or are there kind of like, here's a bucket of ideas, pick one, or like, how does that work exactly?
So we do a mix. So in that sense, the academy is really a hybrid between school and work, right? So there are times where we tell them, look, you won't always get to pick what you want to work on and the team you want to work with. So some challenges that last maybe 2-3 weeks or more, we tell them, this is the big idea for this challenge. So we actually did one around accessibility. The challenge was, can you make somebody's life better? And so they had, I think, 4 or 5 weeks to design an app that would do that exactly. So we give them sometimes the challenge itself, and other times we tell them, do what you please, right? So it can be anything that your team is interested in, similar hobbies. We try to do a mix of both. There are times we tell them, like, your team needs to have a coder, a designer, a business person, right, a researcher, and we're going to tell you what that team is. And other times it's a little bit like middle school dodgeball teams where it's like, well, go ahead and pick, and we see that happen. So we try to give them a few options throughout the year so that they get to experience all of that.
Are there any? Is there anything that they are taught about after the app is in the app store and what they need to do to follow up on it and kind of run the business, so to speak, if you know what I mean?
Yes. So I'll answer that by first saying that the way we have instructors be in the academy, they each specialize in their own kind of pillar of business, coding, or design. So we have design mentors, coding mentors, business mentors. One of the roles of the business mentors is to help them think about the app in the long term and the sustainability of their work. So again, thinking of accessibility and all those things as part of that business plan, if you will, because it's one of the underpinnings of what am I going to have to fix once everything is out there, and this has been running for a year. So we have them do a 5-year business plan. We have them think about how many staff would that take to maintain your app on the App Store and doing everything that needs to be done after it's out there. So while we do focus a lot on the production and the development of the app itself, business is a really big component of anticipating what will need to happen after. So, what are your competitors doing right now that you'll need to anticipate once you're out on the app store and things like that, and the monetary, the budgetary planning for what we know needs to happen after.
So I want to jump back into coding and talk about what are
Mm-hmm.
some of the biggest challenges that students face when they get started coding their app.
I would say that one of the biggest challenge we face is actually that we have students that come into the academy with very different levels of expertise, right? Some students are coming in and they have a CS background and they're very comfortable. Others had never opened a MacBook before they got into the academy. So we're working with very different levels of comfort, right? So we've worked in different levels where some students would just introduce them to playgrounds, right? We work on the iPad. We do some block coding. We really try to introduce them little by little. Others, they start straight away in Xcode. We get them through different challenges, and they really get the hang of it. We get some really good surprises. Some students who had never coded are like, "Oh, I'm really good at this. I understand what's going on," and they become the official coder in their team. And so we try to skill up, offer skill up opportunities for every student that's a little bit more personalized than everybody going through the same process. So we'll do times where it's like, okay, you want to do basic coding, go to this side of the academy. More advanced principles, go this. Today we're going to talk about functions in this area. So we try to customize it enough for students to find their comfort. I will say that because, again, we're looking at development from this larger perspective, not all students will come out of the academy being good coders, but we want them to be dangerous enough to understand the language and understand how to speak and talk and communicate with a programmer who will then execute, the design that, for instance, they want to have. Understanding how data architecture works, right? I think that's that handoff aspect that often designers are like, well, I want this to be like this, and because like, no, it's not going to work. So that's really that language and that comfort level with computational thinking principles. So do I understand what algorithms do? Do I understand what's the logic behind the things that I'm asking a coder to perform? So that's how we handle the coding aspect in the academy, and we do the same for design.
Yeah, I was
And
going to ask about design because that's another thing where I don't know if you get folks who already have design experience that come in,
yes,
but if it's the same thing where it's like, yeah, I don't have any design experience. I don't even know what that means. And then somebody who's like, oh, I know perfectly how to like take advantage of accessibility and understand colors. And
exactly.
like
Yes. And so we see that kind of level everything up at the end of the day, because those who come in and are very comfortable with coding then are finding themselves in a situation where like, oh, what do you mean orange and blue don't go together? And there's color psychology behind all of this. It kind of levels up the approach to development. So everybody finds something that they're good at. But yes, I have students who come in and will draw amazing graphics, right? And are designing a game, and they can come up with the whole design, in 24 hours. And now you're just really talented at doing those things, or really understand research and user flow from their own expertise. So that's why we form teams, and that's why they are really great at combining their skills. One of the things that we noticed is a skill that a lot of people are actually interested in the industry right now. It's project management as well. So we asked students who are interested in project management to be familiar with all those different aspects of the development process, but also are people who understand what steps need to happen when, what time frame is manageable and expected. And this is a set of skills that also allows students to be successful in the academy.
Yeah, that makes a lot. I was going to say project management. People need to plan things out, and they need to know what the heck is going on. And we don't realize that a lot of the times. It's very important. What do you think are some of like the important skills that students could learn, like to participate? Like what are some maybe not just important, but like underappreciated skills that students could learn to participate in the like economy of iOS apps?
Yeah, so I don't know, learning is I think being comfortable with, I'll replace it with that. Is collaboration and teamwork. It's, we call it a soft skill. It's not at all, right. It's one of those most essential professional skills. Um, I'll tell all the mentors in the academy and the students, coding is not the hard part. It's people. And working in teams is so difficult. We see it here, we see it in the workplace, right? Even if you want to be by yourself and do your lines of code, or if you want to be designing in your corner, that doesn't happen very often. You have to communicate with others and you have to work in teams, right? Development doesn't happen in a nutshell, in isolation. And so exposing yourself as much as possible to other people, other ideas, contradicting ideas, conflict, right? Conflict management, those things are essential. And that is what we're really looking for in candidates who join the academy, is people who are willing to enter that space with that mindset. If you come in and you have your idea and you're not going to budge from it, that's going to be really difficult to be successful in the academy. Yes. Anywhere, right? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like that's a really good point, because I think like one of the things is you learn with experience is knowing how to divide up the work in such a way that there's not too much dependency, I guess, in your team. I find that to be really helpful. Like, okay, like teamwork's important, but part of it is like having people have their individual thing to work on, and then being able to collaborate further after that. And communication's huge.
And accountability, right? How do you keep somebody on your team accountable for doing their part that you're waiting on to do your part, right? Like that's such a huge skill that we often undermine or don't even think about, right? We focus so much on the hard skills, and that's something that will make you successful, whether it's at the academy or later on in life. Yes.
And I was just thinking about the other thing you were saying, because I had taught a couple of like just training stuff here in Lansing, whether it was at Cocoa Heads or at the Fledge or something like that. And I've done the whole like teaching thing. And one of the things that you mentioned, you never think about is like, you'll get somebody who may be using Windows or Android, and you're trying to teach them to do iOS development, and like they don't even speak the same language, and like they don't know like the keyboard shortcuts, things that you just kind of learn and pick up as a Mac user. And like we forget about that. Like a lot of people want to get into iOS development because that's maybe not necessarily because they have a passion for it, but maybe because they know that's where the money is, and that's fine. And like for them, it's like they got to learn how to use a Mac, and how to use Xcode, and how do you copy files over, how do you drag, like, because there's a whole other language there that Windows or Android folks might not be familiar with.
Exactly. Yes, it's definitely adaptable, and that's again one of those skills that are hard to measure, right? Is how flexible and adaptable are you as a person to be able to transfer those skills to any other environment and really learn fast how to do that. That is not easy.
No, it's not, and we forget about it all the time because we're like the fish swimming in the water. We know the water's everywhere, but we just when somebody jumps in, it's something completely new. What are some other like unique challenges that students run into when they're in the academy?
Obviously there's the day-to-day, like working with teammates, understanding each other, the skills themselves, right? There's a lot, as you can imagine. Sometimes when we get to the coding part, we get a lot of frustration. It takes, that resilience of, trying. I'm sure we tell them, right? And that, again, that's why we look for students who have that resilience and will try over and over again. So we see a lot of that frustration. I think one of the biggest challenges that we are observing now as we get closer to graduating this first cohort is fighting a lot of misconceptions about what jobs are out there around development and what to look for in jobs. So not all of them will be interested in getting a job, right? But for those who are, they often find themselves like, okay, what kind of jobs do I look for now? Is it all software developers, or how do I find those niche areas that are looking for developers, or where I can be a developer in the sense that the academy thinks of, right? Somebody who's multifunctional and can do project management around app development? Do I look for small businesses who want help digitalizing their work, or do I work for a big 500 company? So I think that's something that we are trying to work on, is not only fighting the misconceptions around development and coding in particular, but also helping students who might not have this computing background understanding where their skills can take them. So that's something we're seeing right now as a big challenge.
So
in the
they like have a
academy.
hard time knowing what jobs to apply for. Is that what you mean?
Yes, understanding that, again, you could look for a project management job with the skills that they gain in the academy, or as a UX or UI designer, and that might not be in development per se, right? But your UX skills might apply to, we have a student who just got a UX job at GM, not necessarily working on the tech solutions, but user experience in general applies to different fields. So I think just expanding people's horizon around what coding means and how it's embedded within a larger ecosystem. Then again, I'm going to use the word simply, but it's not what simply programming or software development per se, right? There's such a huge ecosystem out there where those skills are valued.
Yeah, I think that's true. Was there anything else you want to talk about when it comes to like the difficult things that students find when they get started?
I think again that resilience, figuring themselves out, understanding what they like or don't like, that's been a little bit of a challenge. But in general, because we have a model in the academy of mentorship rather than lecturers or guiding students through one-to-many kind of instruction, we've been able to really handle and personalize the learning so that whatever challenges students have, we can handle. One of the big challenge for us is, adult education is not easy. People have competing priorities and circumstances that make that they can't always dedicate the 20 hours a week to the academy, but that's more on our end than theirs. So most of the students who apply and will apply understand that the commitment is worth their time at the end of the day.
Yeah, what you get out of it is how much you put into it. So it makes
exactly. We can't want it more than they do, but we try to set them up for that best success after the academy.
So is this the first year of the academy? First graduating year, I guess.
First graduating year.
What have you found? Like, I guess what I'm looking for is what kind of, I don't want to say success stories because we're not at that point yet, but like, what has really opened the students' eyes to the possibilities now that they're basically near the end of this first year?
Yes. So one of the benefits of the academy is that it's a partnership with Apple. So we get a lot of Apple guest speakers, right? They get the opportunity to network with people at Apple. It's not a feeder into Apple, but you get the chance or the opportunity to network and listen to people's experience who have been part of that ecosystem for years and really can tell you about that work. So that's I think a hidden success that we didn't really anticipate from the beginning. But when we bring in guest speakers from other industries that are downtown or companies that are interested in what students are doing, that's been a very valuable experience for students that I think we didn't anticipate. And that's something that I'm planning on really emphasizing next year, is that you learn the skills and all this, but being part of the academy is also being part of a network of people and experts. That's a huge hidden benefit that we don't always think of it explicitly. And sometimes that ends up in really good networking opportunity. I have, I think, 3 students from this year who, because of different guest speakers, will be able to be part of some of the City of Detroit fellowships for the summer, or are getting their foot in the doors that they might not have thought about or considered, just because the opportunity wasn't available or wasn't made of, they were not made aware of. So really interesting pathways that we're seeing, and I think that's part of one of the biggest success for this year.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, just to have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
What so yeah, how can people apply, and when does admission for the next year start, and how does that work if people want to
Yes.
get started?
So it is perfect timing for this now. We are actively recruiting for new students for the next cohort. And the application process is fairly simple and it's on our website. We are doing rolling admissions for this year. So we're going to continue accepting and interviewing students or candidates for this next cohort throughout the summer until we are accepting 200 students for this year. So we are in search of the best talent out there, especially in the Detroit area that want to join the academy. So website is Developer Academy at msu.edu, and the application is right there. And I will
In the show notes.
please, perfect, thank you. And I am also hiring for coding mentors. So those are the instructors, the mentors who will guide students specifically in the coding aspect of the work, and that's available on the MSU Career website. Same, looking for people who are passionate about teaching, have coding experience, especially in the iOS ecosystem, and are wanting to be part of a cool experience.
So basically, what are the like besides? So you have to be located in Metro Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
and 18 or older. So sorry, high
Yes.
schoolers. And then, what's for both the position and getting into the academy? And then, what's
Mm-hmm.
the cost as far as for somebody who wants to participate in the academy?
Yes, the academy is free, so there are no cost, no tuition. The academy is free. We free yes, free opportunity for a whole school year. We also provide students with the technology that they need to be successful during their year. So each student gets a
I was
MacBook and
gonna
an
ask.
iPhone. Yes,
Yeah.
they each get a MacBook and an iPhone and have a slew of other tech options in the space to utilize. So yes, and we provide parking downtown Detroit, so that's another plus.
20
Please
hours a week
apply.
for
20 hours a week.
to participate in the academy.
Exactly. So we do morning and afternoon cohorts. So based on your availability and preference, you come either every morning, Monday through Friday, or every afternoon, which gives you some flexibility to do something else with the other half of the day. Um, yeah.
That's awesome. What's the requirements as far as the coding mentor? How many hours a week is that one?
Coding mentor is a full-time position with Michigan State University. So those are employees with full benefits and the whole package.
And then
Mm-hmm.
what kind of skill set does a coding mentor need to have? Like, do they have to have experience with Swift, I guess, and building iOS?
Preferably with iOS. I have mentors who did not have any Swift experience before, but had that computational thinking capability, so understood, the back end and coding, and then are willing to skill up in Swift specifically over the summer.
Okay, awesome. Sounds like some really great opportunities for folks who should definitely, if you
Yeah,
live in Michigan, definitely hop on.
consider it.
Yeah, really consider this. This is a great opportunity. I wish I had this when I was younger, as you can
Yes,
imagine.
same.
Anything else you wanted to share before we close out, Sarah?
I would say if you are in Lansing, East Lansing area, especially if you are an MSU student, we have a version of the academy that's called the iOS Design Lab. It's hosted on campus. Look it up. Lots of interesting and similar processes for it. You can even get, I think, credits for attending. So if you are an MSU student, please do consider that opportunity.
For folks who are not in Michigan, because I have quite a few listeners outside of Michigan, what
Yes.
other opportunities are out there for them if they want to participate in something like this?
So the foundation program would be great. We're working on how we can make this like housing and just being in the location more accessible for people who want to join us for 4 weeks. But I would really consider foundation as a good opportunity. And if not, Swift, and Apple has lots of free resources out there around Swift that are a good introduction to that, at least to see if there's an interest there.
How about as far as the business and design side of things? Because it sounds like there's some really good stuff there as well.
Yes, there are. There are. It's been a lot of finding your own resources for those areas, but there's definitely a lot that you can find online, and that's a plan I have in the future, is making some resources available on our website for people who want to see what that actually looks like or what that means. Yeah.
Speaking of which, we have WWDC in a few weeks, so there'll be some more learning resources for folks, especially in the design and business, not only coding. So we're excited about that. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. It was really great to have you on. Where can people find you online?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. My LinkedIn profile is pretty open, so connect with me. Happy to chat. And Leon, we'll have to make sure that you come to the Academy at some point.
Yeah, I'd love to come and give a talk or whatever I can do to help. It's a great opportunity. Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. We'll have links to the Apple Developer Academy, the MSU iOS Design Lab, as well as the position to the coding mentor that maybe people can take advantage of. Yeah, it's been great to have you on.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
People can find me on Twitter at Leo G. Dion. My company is Bright Digit. Take some time to post a review on wherever you're listening to your podcast. Like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And I look forward to talking to you again. Bye, everyone.